Thank you. Candidates, in the U.S. Senate, you have a choice. You can try to work across the aisle and move legislation, which leads to suspicion from the base that you're a Republican in name only, a rhino. Or you can fight partisan battles in the media, rake in the fundraising dollars, and become a major party player in your party politics. What kind of senator will you be? What are voters getting if they elect you? A partisan fighter or a deal maker? General Bolduc, to you first.
Well, I'm an outsider, and I've run on the fact that I will be a fighter in Washington, D.C., but that doesn't mean that you can't work together to get things done for Granite Staters. And the things that Granite Staters want done is they want low inflation. They want control of out-of-control spending. Maggie Hassan has spent $5.1 trillion since March of 2021. It's wasteful, we don't have it, and it's hurting Granite Staters. They want a strong country, borders, and a strong foreign policy. They're afraid for their children, they're afraid for their grandchildren, and their livelihood right now is under attack. So I will go down there and fight for those things. And you're either with me or you're not with me in the United States Senate. And that's the message that I'll deliver to all the senators and all the congresspersons down in Washington, D.C. I will be the ambassador for the state of New Hampshire.
Senator Morse, to you next.
Yes, I think I've proven that I can do it here in New Hampshire, working across party lines with people that believe in the same ideals that I have. I did it in 2015. I said we needed to cut business taxes in New Hampshire to grow the economy and be able to solve our budget problems, and that's what I did. Maggie Hassan, she chose to veto that budget. And I worked all summer long to make sure the Republicans and Democrats and independents saw the other side of this. They saw we could grow an economy here in New Hampshire by cutting business taxes. And we overrode Maggie Hassan's veto, and it was for the benefit of New Hampshire. Look, we're the envy of the nation right now, right here in New Hampshire, with the way we grew this economy.
Mr. Smith, to you, same question.
Yeah, look, I have a long track record of being both a conservative fighter, but a fixer as well, someone who gets results. You know, as the town manager of Londonderry for the last decade, we were one of the most successful communities in the state for economic development. We lowered taxes in Londonderry. Same thing over at Pease, where I was the chairman of the board there. We expanded businesses on the trade port. But as I said, I have a record of being a conservative fighter too. I served in the legislature. I have a conservative voting record. I was named the Pro-Life House Member of the Year in 1997. And when I'm talking to people out on the campaign trail, they're talking to me about all the issues that Maggie Hassan is not addressing right now and the issues that I will fight for. It's the price of home heating oil, the high skyrocketing electric rates we have right now, the high prices at the gas pump, our border not being secure, parental rights and education, election integrity. All of these issues I will be a conservative fighter on, but as I said, I have a long track record of being able to work with people to get great results as well.
Mr. Moncharmani, what are voters getting if they elect you, a partisan fighter or a deal maker?
You know, I'd start right away by saying what they're going to get is a representative that takes Granite State interests at heart and takes them down to Washington, D.C. to fight on their behalf. And if that means working across the aisle to get Granite State values implemented, to stop this out-of-control inflation, to develop an energy policy that makes sense, to turn around and treat China like the threat it is, well, I'm going to work across the aisle to do that then. That's absolutely important. Politics has gotten so divisive that we need to focus on getting things done. I think that the thousands of individuals I've talked to across the Granite State are frankly frustrated by the politics. They're frustrated by the partisanship. What they want is not politics, they want progress. They want their problems solved. They want solutions. They're really tired of all this bickering of one side says one thing, the other side says another thing, and nothing gets done.
Mr. Fenton, same question.
Yeah, I wouldn't be a partisan outsider or a deal maker primarily. I'd be primarily what I've been most of my life, which is a disruptor. And I think that's exactly what we need in Washington, D.C. right now with what they have pulled on us with their increasing tyranny and their economic tyranny. I think we need a disruptor. And primarily it comes down to votes. My votes would be consistently, absolutely no votes against government expansion, against tyranny, against expansion of the tax base, and for human rights and freedom. So I would be a disruptor. A great example of that is the filibuster, which is a power that you have in the United States Senate. I wanted to see if I could break the record held by Strom Thurmond, which was 24 hours. I made it 33 hours. So I broke the record by 9 hours. That's exactly the kind of thing that voters could count on me to do every week if necessary, if it's a matter of rolling back government, decreasing the tyranny, and increasing freedom, putting more power in the hands of the individual in New Hampshire.